My ex used me to raise her kids, then left for another man, so I moved on. Silently, and now she regrets everything daily. I'm a 29-year-old guy, and I never planned on being a stepdad. If you'd told me a few years ago that I'd fall for a woman with 2 kids, 2 other men's kids, I would have laughed you out of the room. That was never the dream. I pictured myself with someone who wanted to build a family from scratch with me, not someone already carrying so much history. But life has a twisted sense of humor, and I guess so do I, because the way I met Hannah was as random and unplanned as everything else that followed. She was this force, vivid, unpredictable, with that wild laugh that just sucked you into her orbit. I met her at a friend's birthday dinner. She was wearing this red dress, hair pulled up, barely any makeup, but somehow more stunning than anyone in the room. I remember her talking about her kids so casually, as if motherhood was just a detail, not a defining trait. "Yeah, my monsters are with their grandma tonight." "I needed a night off," she said, and for a moment, I saw something in her eyes. Relief, but also guilt. I tried to act unfazed, but honestly, it scared me. I'd never even dated anyone with kids. "Doesn't that get complicated?" I asked her when we stepped outside for air. She just shrugged, exhaled smoke, and said, "Everything worth doing is complicated." The way she said it made me want to believe her. Maybe I was naive. Maybe I was just lonely. But by the end of the night, I wanted to see her again, baggage and all. The first time I met her kids, I panicked. They were these little people, suspicious, loud, chaotic. "Who's that?" the youngest demanded, clinging to Hannah's leg. "Just a friend," she said, shooting me a look that was half warning, half apology. I laughed it off, tried to act cool, but I could feel my hands sweating. I wish I could say I walked away then, but the truth is, something in me wanted this. I wanted to matter to someone, to them. Maybe I just wanted to prove I could be the man nobody else had bothered to be for them. Stupid, right? If I'd known how much that hope would cost me, maybe I would have run. But I didn't. I kept coming back, drawn in by the chaos, the challenge, and by Hannah herself, who always kept just enough distance to make me work for every inch. But even as I started to picture a future with them, I felt this gnawing fear. What if I never really belonged? What if I was always just the outsider, the substitute? That worry haunted me more than I admitted, especially in those first months when everything felt so fragile, and I should have trusted that feeling. Because soon enough, I'd find out just how temporary my place really was. Moving in wasn't some big dramatic moment. It happened by accident, almost. One weekend, Hannah asked if I could stay over because her youngest had a fever. The next thing I knew, my toothbrush was next to theirs, my work shoes by the door. Within weeks, I'd given up my apartment to save money. But really, it felt like I'd been drafted into a life I never trained for, a dad with no manual, no clue, and no backup. I learned fast that kids don't care if you're tired. There were late-night cries echoing down the hallway, sometimes just nightmares, sometimes stomach bugs, sometimes nothing at all except a desperate need for someone to sit on the edge of their bed and whisper, "You're okay. Go back to sleep." I'd stumble into their room, rubbing my eyes, trying to be gentle even when I was running on fumes. Sometimes they let me, sometimes they screamed for mom, until I backed out, heart stinging. Mornings were a whirlwind, lost shoes, half-eaten cereal, one kid crying because the other looked at him weird. Hannah would yell over the chaos, but by the time she finally emerged from the bathroom, she'd always seem distracted, phone in hand, texting someone, already half out the door. "Can you handle drop-off?" she'd ask. I'd nod, stuffing homework folders into backpacks and zipping jackets, pretending I knew what I was doing. Bonding with the kids was messy. There were days when they slammed their doors in my face, shouting, "You're not my real dad!" It hurt in ways I never expected. But then there were these quiet moments, like when the oldest handed me a crumpled drawing of us, stick figures holding hands, or when the youngest fell asleep in my lap during a movie, breathing soft and warm, trusting me just enough for that one small thing. I clung to those scraps of affection like lifelines. Hannah, though, seemed to fade further into the background. She called herself exhausted and said she needed me time almost every night. "Can you just put them to bed?" "I need a break," she'd sigh, already halfway into her bedroom with the door closing behind her. At first, I wanted to be helpful. I told myself this is what a good partner does. Steps up, makes things easier. "This is just what love means," I repeated, over and over, every time I felt that pinch of resentment. Still, the imbalance grew louder. I started to feel like the hired help, a stand-in for her, but never her partner. But I couldn't let myself admit that, not out loud. I was scared that if I stopped carrying everything, the whole house of cards would collapse. And honestly, I kept waiting for her to notice, to care, to step in and share the weight. But every time I looked up, she was gone, leaving me alone with the responsibility, and with questions I was too afraid to ask. It's wild how quickly someone's true colors bleed through, especially when you're the one picking up the slack. At first, I barely noticed it, just small things. Hannah had always been social, but now girls' night was 2, sometimes 3 times a week. She'd text last minute, "Can you get the kids?" "Running late." Or totally forgot, "Can you handle dinner?" I found myself racing from work to school pickup, then scrambling to get groceries, homework, baths, and bedtime handled before she finally walked through the door, tipsy and laughing, like nothing was wrong. Money got weird too. She started acting like my paycheck was our safety net, and hers was just fun money. I'd open the fridge to find it empty except for yogurt and half a bottle of wine. "Didn't you say you were going to the store?" I'd ask. She'd wave it off. "Oh, I'll go tomorrow. Can you just grab something tonight?" It was like I'd become the default parent and the ATM. But the part that really messed with my head was the way she started picking at me. Out of nowhere, she'd look me up and down and say, "You look tired. You should do something about those circles under your eyes." Or if I tried to play with the kids, silly voices, pillow forts, she'd roll her eyes, muttering, "Trying a little hard, aren't you?" One time I asked if she could help with the science fair project and she snapped, "You're their favorite anyway." I'm just the mean mom, apparently. I tried to talk to her about it, just a calm, honest conversation. I remember sitting on the edge of the bed, voice barely steady. "Hannah, I feel like I'm doing everything lately. It's starting to wear me down." She didn't even look up from her phone. "Wow, so now I'm a bad mom because I have a life? You're so controlling, you know that. God, you're so insecure sometimes." And right there, I felt myself shrinking. Was I asking for too much? Was I being clingy, needy, weak? I started second-guessing every complaint, every boundary. I wondered if maybe she was right. Maybe I really was the problem. Maybe loving them all just made me unlovable. But the more I tried to please her, the less of myself I recognized. I was running on empty, desperate for any sign that I was enough for her, for the kids, for anyone. And with every day that passed, I felt myself slipping further from the man I used to be. Somewhere along the way, my place in the house started to blur. I'd come home to find Hannah stretched out on the couch, scrolling through her phone while the kids tore through the living room, shrieking and making a mess. If I asked them to quiet down, she'd shoot me this look, half amusement, half annoyance, then turn to them and say, "Don't worry, he's just grumpy." The kids would giggle and ignore me. I'd stand there, invisible in my own living room, fighting the urge to yell just to be heard. There were nights when I'd cook dinner, call everyone to the table, and Hannah would barely glance up before saying, "I'm not hungry," then go out with her friends anyway. The kids would pick at their food, barely talking, eyes flicking to her empty chair. Once when I tried to enforce bedtime, the oldest crossed her arms and glared at me. "You're not the boss. Mom says we can stay up." I looked at Hannah for backup, but she just shrugged and said, "Let them be kids." It felt like a punch to the gut. I'd lose those little battles over and over until I stopped fighting altogether, but the worst was when she'd put on her supermom act for her friends. She'd throw these loud get-togethers, moms from school, her cousins, people from work. The house would be packed, music blasting, wine flowing. Hannah would laugh and tell story after story about how she did it all on her own, a badass single mom making it work. Sometimes she'd even say, "I don't need a man to help me," while I was literally washing dishes in the next room or chasing her kids up the stairs. Nobody ever asked who I was. I was just there, the help, the background noise. Birthday parties made it even more obvious. I'd spend weeks planning, decorating, making sure everything was perfect. Then, when family arrived, I'd watch as Hannah accepted all the compliments, grinning and soaking up the attention. If anyone did notice me, it was to ask, "Are you the babysitter?" Or, "Oh, you're so sweet to help out." I'd swallow the humiliation, force a smile, and excuse myself to refill drinks or clean up another spill. One night, after everyone had left and the house was finally quiet, I sat at the kitchen table with a half-eaten piece of cake and wondered if I was actually part of this family, or just a stand-in, Someone to fill the empty seats, pay the bills, keep the chaos running. I started to wonder if anyone would even notice if I disappeared. Maybe the scariest part was, I wasn't sure I'd notice either, and the more I faded into the background, the less I felt like a person at all. Just a shadow, always there but never really seen. Money became a sore spot faster than I could have imagined. At first, splitting things felt normal. Her paycheck went to groceries, mine handled rent. But over time, her contributions started vanishing. The utilities would come due and she'd joke, "Oh, I'm tapped out this month, can you cover it?" Then it was the car payment, then school fees, then new shoes the kids suddenly needed the week after she bought herself another designer bag. I found myself covering everything. Field trips, birthday gifts, new backpacks, doctor visits, last-minute pizza nights when Hannah forgot to cook. Each time she'd flash this guilty grin, press a kiss to my cheek and say, "You're such a good provider, babe. I don't know what I'd do without you." But that praise started to sour, especially when I looked at my bank balance and realized I had nothing left at the end of the month. When I tried to bring it up, usually late at night, after the kids were asleep, she'd twist it into a character flaw. "Are you really going to nickel and dime me?" "God, why are you so obsessed with money?" Her words would cut deeper. "My ex never made me feel bad about needing things. Maybe you're just not man enough." I'd freeze, shame burning through me, swallowing every angry reply because I didn't want to fight in front of the kids. Besides, wasn't I supposed to take care of them? Wasn't that what a real man does? I started rationing my lunches at work, skipping little things I used to enjoy just so I could keep up with the mounting bills. The kids needed new clothes, the car needed repairs, suddenly the school was raising fees again. Every time my phone buzzed with a new expense, my chest tightened. But if I ever said no, Hannah would huff, "Fine. I'll just figure it out myself," storming off and slamming doors until I caved in again. I felt trapped, buried under responsibilities I never agreed to, but too guilty to leave. The kids had come to rely on me. Who else was going to make sure they had dinner, got to school on time, got tucked in at night? Even as my anxiety kept me up night after night, I told myself this was just a rough patch, that love meant sacrifice. But the truth? I started to see just how little control I had. Hannah made all the decisions, vacations, parties, even what kind of milk we bought, while I was the one paying for it all. The deeper I sank, the more I wondered if I'd ever climb out, or if I'd just keep digging until there was nothing left of me. And I was terrified that if I stopped, even for a second, this whole fragile life would fall apart, and I'd be the villain who broke up the only family I ever had. If I look back now, I can see the pattern so clearly, but living through it was like wandering lost in fog. Hannah had a way of cycling between icy silence and sudden warmth, and every time I thought things were getting better, it turned out she just wanted something. I'd go days barely getting a word from her. Cold shoulders at dinner, brushed off hugs, no eye contact in bed. I'd wonder what I'd done wrong, rack my brain for something I missed. Then, like a switch had been flipped, she'd crawl into my lap or drape her arms around me in the kitchen, purring, "Babe, you know I appreciate you, right?" That's when she'd ask for something big. A weekend away, extra money, babysitting so she could have girl time. The worst part? I'd feel relieved to have her affection, even if I knew it was transactional. I started trying to set boundaries, small ones at first. I'd say, "I can't keep missing work to watch the kids," or "We need to talk about our spending." But she'd twist every conversation. "Oh, so you don't want to help? Fine, maybe we're just not meant to be." Or she'd start packing a bag, slamming drawers, making a big show of leaving every time I tried to say no. I'd find myself apologizing just to make the storm stop. Sometimes she'd go out for hours, leaving the kids with me and ignoring my calls. I never knew if she was coming back. The kids sensed the tension even if they didn't have the words for it. I'd catch them whispering in the hallway, their eyes wide and worried when they saw me and Hannah arguing in the kitchen. They didn't know whose side to be on. Some nights they'd retreat to their rooms early, pulling the covers over their heads, desperate to escape the tension that clung to the walls like damp. I started questioning everything. Was I too demanding? Too sensitive? Was I making problems where there were none? I'd replay arguments in my head, trying to find the moment I'd screwed up. But even as I doubted my own sanity, I couldn't let go of hope. I'd tell myself, "She's just stressed. It'll get better. We just need a fresh start." I clung to that hope like a lifeline. because the alternative was too painful to face. But somewhere deep down, I was starting to suspect I'd never really get the woman I fell for back. And every day, the version of me she wanted, obedient, invisible, endlessly forgiving, felt further and further from the man I used to be. Still, I kept waiting for the storm to clear, praying that one day she'd choose me for real, not just when she needed something. To the outside world, we looked perfect. Hannah's Instagram became a glossy highlight reel. Matching Halloween costumes, Sunday brunches, all of us beaming in golden sunlight at the park. She'd post a picture of us snuggled on the couch, me reading to the kids, her legs stretched across my lap, and caption it, "So grateful for this little family." Blessed, every post racked up likes and fire emojis. Her friends commented, "You two are couple goals." Even my mom would text me screenshots saying, "You look so happy, honey." But every one of those pictures had a reality behind it. 15 minutes before she snapped that perfect family photo, we were fighting in the kitchen, her accusing me of being a killjoy because I didn't want to take the kids out when I had work to do, me pleading for just one weekend where I didn't have to plan everything. The smiles were forced, the laughter brittle. After the camera clicked, she'd shove her phone in my face. "Smile better next time. You look tired." I wanted to scream. Our happy outings were performances. We'd show up to the zoo, the museum, family barbecues, acting like the perfect blended family. I'd hold her hand, carry the diaper bag, push the stroller, all while watching her check her phone for notifications. She lived for attention, the public praise, the chance to play the hero. But at home, she barely spoke to me unless she needed something. I spent whole evenings eating dinner alone while she gossiped on FaceTime or vanished to her room for a bath. My friends started noticing. "Man, you seem different. Are you okay?" they'd ask. Or, "We never see you anymore." Even my sister, who lives 3 hours away, could sense it in my voice on the phone. "If you're not happy, you can leave, you know." But I brushed it off every time. "Nah, just tired. You know how it is with kids." I didn't want anyone to see how much I was failing or how scared I was. Inside, I was suffocating. I wanted to run. I'd lay awake at night, staring at the ceiling, imagining what it would be like to pack my bags and disappear. But then I'd picture the kids waiting at the door, asking for goodnight hugs, needing someone to show up for them. The guilt was crushing. I told myself it was better for everyone if I stayed, the good guy, the reliable one, the one who never quit. But in the quiet moments, when the house was dark and the performance was over, I'd wonder how much longer I could keep pretending. If I left, would the kids hate me? If I stayed, would I ever matter? And that fear, the fear of being alone, or worse, being nobody, kept me locked in place, still smiling for the camera, still hoping someone would finally see through the filter. It was a Wednesday night when I noticed the first real fracture in the carefully painted picture we presented to the world. Hannah said she was working late, something about an emergency at her office. I didn't think much of it. Those stories were getting more frequent, but I tried to be understanding. I made dinner, helped the kids with homework, and put them to bed. Around 9, I heard the front door open. I waited for her to call out, but there was nothing. Instead, I heard her hushed voice in the hallway, laughter that didn't sound like it was meant for me. I peered around the corner and saw her on the phone whispering, her back to me. I caught words like, "He's asleep," and "I miss you too," followed by a little giggle that twisted my stomach. She noticed me watching and instantly dropped her tone, face snapping back to annoyance. "Why are you spying on me?" she demanded. I stammered, "I just wanted to see if you were okay." She brushed past me, muttering, "You always have to make everything weird." The air between us was suddenly icy, thick with unspoken accusations. Things started unraveling quickly after that. One day I found a receipt for dinner for 2, some fancy place across town, on a night she'd told me she was with the girls. When I asked her about it, she barely hesitated. "It was just a friend. Stop acting jealous." She laughed it off like I was being ridiculous, but her eyes never met mine. The kids, always more perceptive than adults give them credit for, started acting out. The oldest would glare at me when I asked where their mom was, shoulders tense, lips pressed tight. The youngest began throwing tantrums at bedtime, clinging to me and crying for both of us. I tried to hold it together, tried to fill in the gaps, but I could feel the ground shifting beneath me. My friends, once just worried, became blunt. Something's off, man. You're always covering for her, but does she ever cover for you? Even my mom, who'd tried so hard to like Hannah, started to call less, afraid to say the wrong thing and push me further away. Inside the house, it felt like living in a minefield. Any word, any look could set her off. She'd alternate between ignoring me completely and picking fights over nothing. Sometimes late at night, I'd sit in the dark kitchen, listening to her laugh in another room, wondering who she was talking to and why it never seemed to be me. But I still clung to hope, convincing myself these were just rough patches. After all, families have problems, right? I told myself it would pass. I just had to hold on a little longer, but the cracks were spreading fast and I was running out of excuses to cover them up. Looking back, I guess I always knew something was wrong. But nothing prepared me for the gut punch that finally shattered my denial. It happened on a Saturday morning, the kind of day that should have been ordinary. Cereal on the table, cartoons for the kids, Hannah still in bed. I was cleaning up when her phone buzzed, lighting up with a name I didn't recognize and a string of hearts. For the first time I hesitated. My heart hammered in my chest as I picked it up. I never meant to snoop. But there it was. Message after message, weeks of late-night texts, voice notes. I can't wait to see you again. Photos? 2 selfies of Hannah in the bathroom mirror. A dinner I didn't recognize, a hotel receipt. I felt my stomach drop, icy and sick. I heard myself whisper, "No, please no." When she came into the kitchen and saw me holding her phone, her eyes didn't even register surprise, just annoyance. "What are you doing?" She snapped, snatching it from my hand. I could barely speak. "Who is he, Hannah?" My voice cracked, barely a whisper. The kids were still in the next room, so I tried to keep it together, but I was shaking. She glared at me, arms crossed. "What do you want me to say? You already know? Yes, I've been seeing someone else for months." Her words didn't sound real. She didn't apologize. She didn't even look sorry. "He makes me feel alive," she said, chin raised, eyes hard. "You're just here. You take care of things. He makes me feel something. And I deserve that. You can't give it to me." For a second, the world tilted. I wanted to scream, to break something, but all I could do was stare at her. "So what now?" I managed, voice hoarse. She shrugged, utterly unmoved. "I'm moving on. I want to be happy. I'm not going to pretend anymore. You can stay until you figure out where to go, but I don't owe you anything." Behind me, I heard the clatter of a cereal bowl, a child's voice. "What's wrong, Daddy?" I didn't have an answer. I felt exposed, humiliated, like the last fool at a party where everyone else knew the joke. The betrayal felt radioactive. Even the air seemed poisoned. All I could do was stand there, the walls closing in, while the woman I'd built my life around made it clear I was just a placeholder, a warm body until something better came along. And suddenly, I realized I wasn't just losing her. I was about to lose the only family I'd ever dared to love. The days that followed felt like living in someone else's nightmare. Hannah didn't waste time. By the next week, she'd packed my things into cheap cardboard boxes and stacked them by the door like I was an old appliance she'd outgrown. No conversation, no "let's work this out." Just a cold, efficient, "you'll need to find somewhere else to stay. He's moving in soon." It didn't matter that half the furniture in that house was mine, or that I'd paid the last 6 months' bills. None of it mattered. The kids watched from the stairs, wide-eyed, silent, afraid. The oldest tried to hug me, but Hannah pulled her away, saying, "We need to let him go now. It's not his house anymore." Her voice was sharp, final, like she was slicing off a limb. My phone buzzed with messages from her friends, all parroting her side. "You need to respect her happiness. It's for the best. The kids will adjust." Even a few of my friends took her word for it. "Don't make it ugly," they warned. "It's not good for the children." I wanted to scream at every one of them. Tell them how many nights I'd tucked those kids in, how many mornings I'd kissed scraped knees, made lunches, read bedtime stories. But it didn't matter. None of it mattered. I was yesterday's news. I tried staying with my brother for a while, sleeping on his lumpy couch, listening to the sound of his baby crying in the night. Even there, I felt out of place, too broken to offer help, too ashamed to explain what really happened. My phone was quiet. No text from the kids, not even a thank you. It was like I'd been erased overnight. My brother would try to draw me out. "You want to talk?" he'd ask. But what could I say? That I lost everything? That I wasn't even allowed to say goodbye? The worst moment came on a Saturday afternoon. I drove past the old house just needing to see it one more time, maybe spot the kids in the yard. Instead, I saw her new boyfriend's car parked in the driveway. His hand on the mailbox, his arms around my family. I felt rage and grief and humiliation all at once. A storm so strong I nearly doubled over. That night, alone in a borrowed room, I stared at the ceiling and realized I was no one's father, no one's partner, no one's anything. I was nothing, just a name on a lease that no longer mattered, and as much as it hurt, the silence that followed was almost worse than the pain. Because it was in that emptiness that I truly understood how disposable I'd become. If you've ever wondered what it feels like to have your life erased, let me tell you, it's quieter than you'd expect. The first few mornings after I left, I'd wake up in a cold panic, heart pounding, reaching for an alarm I didn't need anymore. No little footsteps outside my door, no frantic breakfast rush, no one asking where their shoes were. Just the hum of the fridge and the distant traffic from my brother's window. I'd sit on the edge of that lumpy guest bed and stare at my phone, willing a message to appear. Anything. A hi, a we miss you, even a question about homework. But nothing ever came. I tried to keep myself busy. I filled out job applications, helped my brother with chores, even went for long, pointless walks in the rain. But every time I heard a child's laugh from a nearby playground, something inside me twisted. I felt invisible, like a ghost haunting a life that moved on without me. Sometimes I'd scroll through Hannah's social media. There she was, smiling wide, arm in arm with her new guy. "Fresh start," the caption read. Photos of the kids on new adventures, zoo trips, ice cream, matching t-shirts. Friends commented, "You all look so happy." I wanted to scream. Did nobody see what was missing? Or was I the only one who remembered how things really were? My friends reached out less and less, unsure what to say. My mom called every night, her voice soft with worry, but I lied to her. "I'm fine, Mom, I'll bounce back." The truth was, I wasn't sure I could. Nights were the worst. I'd lie awake, replaying every mistake I'd made every time I failed to see the warning signs. I questioned everything. Was I too soft? Too trusting? Did I bring this on myself? I signed up for therapy after my brother begged me to try. The first session, I barely spoke. When the therapist asked, "What brings you here?" I just stared at my hands and said, "I lost my family. But they weren't even mine to begin with." The words broke me open. I walked out feeling more hollow than before. Rock bottom isn't just pain, it's the echoing emptiness that follows, the realization that the world keeps spinning while you're stuck in slow motion. And in that void, I wondered if I'd ever be whole again, or if I was destined to live as a footnote in someone else's happy ending. But even as I sat in that darkness, I had no idea how much further I'd have to fall before things would start to change. There's no dramatic montage when you start putting yourself back together. It's just tiny steps day after day that nobody else sees. At first, it was just breathing, remembering how to fill my lungs, how to get out of bed without wanting to vanish. My brother started inviting me to dinner, forcing me to join his family for their noisy, messy meals. His baby would hurl peas at me and giggle, and for a second I'd feel something warm cut through the numbness. I clung to that, no matter how brief. Therapy sessions became my lifeline, even when all I could manage was sitting in silence, fists clenched. My therapist was patient. She'd say, "You can hate her and still love what you had. Both can be true." At first, I didn't believe her. I'd lost so much, how could I be allowed to miss it too? But little by little, I started to talk. I told her about the kids' bedtime routines, about the Saturday pancakes, about Hannah's laugh before it got cold. I confessed the guilt, the secret hope that maybe somehow I'd hear from them again. I started running in the mornings, not because I enjoyed it, but because moving forward felt like a rebellion against the heaviness. Some days I'd make it a block before my legs gave out. Other days I'd keep going, chasing the dawn. I stopped looking at Hannah's profiles. I deleted old photos, hid the birthday cards, packed away the reminders. I needed to make space for something new, even if I didn't know what that was yet. Old friends came back around gently. My best friend dragged me to a baseball game. "You're still here, man," he said, clapping my shoulder. "Don't let her erase you." My mom came to visit, cooked way too much food, and filled the house with stories from my childhood. For the first time in months, I laughed, really laughed, without feeling guilty. But healing isn't a straight line. Some nights I'd still wake up sweating, heart racing from dreams of the kids calling out for me. Sometimes I'd catch myself reaching for my phone, desperate for a message that would never come. And every day I had to remind myself, you survived. You're surviving. Hope was a quiet thing, not the blaring promise I'd been waiting for. But in those small moments, sharing a joke with my brother, feeling the sun on my face during a run, hearing my mom's laughter fill the house, I started to believe I could build something new, and for the first time in forever, I caught a glimpse of the person I used to be, someone worth saving, even if I had to do it alone. It happened just when I thought I was finally finding my footing again. I was out for coffee with my brother when my phone buzzed with a number I hadn't saved, but immediately recognized. My stomach dropped. Hannah. For a second, I almost let it go to voicemail. But curiosity, or maybe old habit, won out, and I picked up. Her voice was shaky, a little too cheerful. Hey, it's me. How are you? I could tell she was trying to sound casual, but the tension crept in. I wanted to see if you'd talk to the kids. They miss you. There was a pause, and I swear I could hear her breathing, waiting for my answer. Part of me wanted to hang up. Another part, an older, weaker part, ached to hear from the kids, to believe for a moment that I'd mattered after all. I agreed to a call that evening, heart pounding the whole day. When the video chat connected, their faces filled the screen. Older, maybe a little sadder, but still them. The oldest said, "Hi," eyes down, awkward. The youngest was shy at first, then grinned and held up a crayon drawing. I bit my tongue to keep from crying. Hannah hovered in the background. After the call, she messaged again. It's been hard lately. The kids keep asking about you, and things haven't really worked out with, well, never mind. Her words were loaded, laced with regret. I'm sorry. For everything. I miss having you around. Maybe we could talk sometime? For a moment, I almost fell for it. The old instinct to fix things, to help, flared up. I could feel the pull, the desire to step right back into that old role, to be the one who held everything together. But something had shifted. The pain she'd caused, the months of silence, the work I'd done to build myself back, they all came crashing in. I realized I couldn't go back to being her safety net, her backup plan, her emotional crutch. Still, it wasn't easy to say no. I typed, erased, retyped. Finally, I wrote, I care about the kids, and I'm glad they're okay. But I can't go back to how things were. I hope you understand. She responded with a string of sad emojis and a, please, can't we just try? For the first time, I didn't answer right away. I let her words hang there, unfinished, just like everything else she'd left behind. But I knew the truth. I was finally the one in control. And she could feel it too. For days, Hannah kept trying. She texted late at night, first with apologies, then with nostalgia, finally with desperation. The kids need you. You were always the only one who cared. Even, I made a mistake. I see it now, please. Each message chipped at me, but each time I felt that old urge to swoop in. I remembered the hollow ache of those last months with her, the way I'd vanished in my own home, the man I'd become just to keep her happy. She pushed harder, even asking if we could meet up. Part of me wanted to see her, to see if anything had changed. We met in a crowded coffee shop. She looked tired, thinner, her eyes ringed with worry. She launched into her speech, how things hadn't worked out, how she missed my steadiness, how hard it was doing everything alone. Her voice trembled as she talked about the kids. They keep asking when you're coming back. Can't you just come over for dinner for them? I let her words wash over me, listening to all the old justifications, the sudden, I need you. When she reached across the table, touching my hand, I felt a jolt of guilt, and then, unexpectedly, freedom. I took a deep breath. Hannah, I care about the kids, but I can't go back to how things were. Not for them, not for you, not for me. Her face crumpled. You're just going to leave us? After everything? She whispered. I shook my head, my voice steady. I'm not leaving. I already left. I gave everything, and you made it clear it wasn't enough. I won't do that to myself again. She started to cry, her shoulders shaking, but I stayed put, feeling the strength in my refusal. For once, I wasn't the one begging. That night, I called the kids. I told them I would always care about them, but I couldn't live there anymore. I promised I'd always be someone they could reach out to, even if it was different now. It hurt. God, it hurt. But it was honest. It was real. Hannah tried a few more times, swinging between anger and pleading, but I stood my ground. The power to walk away, to choose myself, felt strange and new, but it also felt like the only thing that could save me. And as I walked out of that coffee shop, the weight I'd carried for years finally started to lift. For the first time, my life was my own, and nobody else's to define. The messages slowed, then stopped. Days passed, then weeks. Every now and then, Hannah would send a stray text, updates about the kids, a photo of them at a school event, sometimes just a sad emoji late at night. But the tone had changed. No more guilt-tripping, no more empty promises, just a quiet sadness that seemed to seep through every word. Word got around. Friends who'd sided with her in the beginning now reached out to me, voices softer, almost apologetic. "I didn't know," they'd say. "She told us you just left." I shrugged it off. There was no point in settling old scores. People believe what they want to believe. From a distance, I watched as Hannah's life unraveled. Social media went quiet. The new boyfriend was gone. Pictures of elaborate parties and perfect outings disappeared, replaced by the occasional photo of the kids, smaller smiles, forced cheer. Even the house, once always bustling, loud with laughter, seemed quieter, the lights behind the windows a little dimmer every night I passed by. Sometimes the kids would call. The oldest wanted to know if I'd help with a school project. The youngest just wanted to hear me read a bedtime story. I kept my boundaries, but I always answered, making sure they knew I still cared. But with Hannah, I kept it brief. I didn't ask about her, and I didn't offer help. I let her sit with her choices. One night, months later, she called me out of the blue. "I'm sorry," she said, her voice barely a whisper. "I thought you were the problem, but I see now. I lost the only person who ever truly loved us." Her words were heavy, but I didn't feel satisfaction. I felt relief. For the first time, I wasn't looking for revenge. I didn't need to win. I just needed to be free. I hung up, feeling something loosen inside me. Her regret was hers to carry. My freedom was mine to claim. And for the first time, I let myself believe I could build a life that wasn't built around someone else's approval, someone else's chaos. I slept better that night than I had in years, finally certain that the past was behind me and that I could choose what came next. Starting over isn't cinematic. There's no thunderclap, no grand revelation. It's waking up one morning and realizing the pain in your chest is gone. It's making coffee in your own kitchen, quiet and unhurried, and feeling grateful for the silence. It's joining a pickup basketball game with friends who never asked you to be anyone but yourself. It's laughing, really laughing, at some dumb movie on a Friday night. Realizing you're not waiting for your phone to buzz with some crisis or guilt trip. I started building new routines, volunteering at a local shelter, picking up old hobbies I'd abandoned, even going on the occasional awkward date. I didn't look for rescue in anyone else's eyes. I learned to cook just for me, bought the shoes I used to skip, let myself enjoy the smallest victories. Sometimes when I'd hear a child's laughter in the park, it had hit me like a wave, but the ache was softer now, a memory, not a wound. Therapy helped me stitch together all the broken parts, and the people who really cared, my brother, my mom, my best friend, helped me fill in the rest. For the first time, I stopped living for other people's approval. I forgave myself for staying too long, and for wanting to be loved so badly I lost myself. I learned that leaving isn't failure, and loving yourself is sometimes the bravest thing you can do. Hannah faded into the background, a lesson written in scars, not bitterness. I wished her well quietly from a distance. The kids reached out less and less, but I held space for them whenever they needed it. No strings, no resentment. The door to that old life stayed closed, and every day I walked a little further into my own future. Now, when I look in the mirror, I see someone I fought to become. Someone I respect. I'm not defined by who left or who stayed. I'm defined by the fact that I survived, healed, and built something new from the ashes. And that's the ending no one else ever gave me, the one I finally gave myself.